off any electronic devices you have, so we don't have any disturbances, please. And then I'm going to ask our CRA Director to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't need to sign in for this meeting, but I have it noted that all the CRA commissioners are present. And with that, we'll move to item number 3, approval of CRA minutes. If I could have action, please.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
motion to approve the minutes, CRA minutes from February 12th, 2018.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second to approve CRA minutes, February 12th, 2018. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, minutes are accepted. Anybody in the audience at this time would like to speak to the CRA commissioners? Anybody in the audience would like to speak to us? Okay, be like that. Don't speak to us. It's okay. We won't be offended. Okay, we'll start off then with number 5, old business. Dr. Leone, our attorney, you're going to tell us something about the CRA master plan?
Yes, sir. As you should be aware, after the February 13th joint meeting with the county attorney and I have been working on the terms for the interlocal agreement.
Right.
And it now includes terms that are acceptable at least to the attorneys and is now up for review by the boards. And the amended redevelopment plan and interlocal agreement will need to be approved by the city council, and the county would have to approve the interlocal agreement as well as the CRA. In order for the city to approve the plan, we're going to need to have an ordinance adopted to approve the amended modification of the redevelopment plan. And so that's the next step, is where we're at as far as when we're going to have that item brought before the city council for approval along with the interlocal agreement. So that for our purposes, we need to have publication of the ordinance and public notice of the plan modification approval.
Right.
So we need to get that in the newspaper and go forward in that direction.
How quickly can we do that, do you think? I mean, I'd like to move this thing along.
Well, I think that we need to do publication, so once the city council has to look at the agreement and approve it in a public hearing, approve the modification of the plan, but we need notice of that, proper notice. So we
Right.
need whatever the newspaper needs, certain amount of notice. We need to publish the ordinances that we propose to approve. So that wouldn't take very long, but it's more of a when you want to have the meeting, if you want to have a special meeting, or if it's going to be a regular meeting, or, you know, when you want to do
I'm
that.
thinking a special meeting. I really don't want to wait another month. If we've got most of the things written out to present them to us, what do you fellow commissioners think? Yes, Mr.
How long does the publication have to be posted?
Enactment of an ordinance takes 10 days. 10 days publication prior to the public hearing.
Will everything be ready then, and everything else be ready in 10 days
From,
from the,
You have to submit it 3 to 5 days
to the newspaper.
before that. So you're talking at least 2 weeks to get a notice in and have it run prior to your public hearing.
Can it be done by a workshop date?
Workshop date?
Or we could have a special meeting before the workshop?
No, sir. To have, it would have had been put in on the 7th. In order for it to have run on the 14th, would it be 10 days prior to the 26th? We can hit the 9th of April.
And how different is that from our regular council meeting of the 9th?
That is our regular.
That is our regular one. I didn't want to wait that long, but.
Well,
Yes,
there's
yes,
the
Madam
7th
Clerk.
of April.
I just have a question. Does this ordinance have to have a first reading that's not published and then the second reading?
It's a regular ordinance.
So it
Regular
has a, so it
ordinance,
has
it's
a,
not-
So it has a first reading, and then the second reading has to be published.
Right.
So we could have the first reading at a special meeting on the 26th and go ahead and advertise the second for the 9th.
Is that correct?
Are you gonna
Well,
have
you need to
those?
publish notice of that you're adopting the
change it?
modification of the plan.
Okay, but not the
Plan
ordinance.
itself, not
but
the
not the
ordinance, not the ordinance, the plan.
Do you have to do that before you do the first reading?
You're gonna be approving the modification.
All right, let's shoot for the city council meeting in the 9th of May, have a special CRA meeting. Is that agreement with
Well-
everybody?
9th of May or April?
That's what I say, April, May, you said May.
April? Yeah, you said May.
Slap me.
April, then.
April.
So that actually will be the regular city council meeting that's gonna, because the city council is gonna be the one that's approving the modification of the plan and the interlocal agreement.
The CRA doesn't do anything prior to that?
Well, actually,
I think we do.
the CRA has to approve the
Right.
agreement as well.
So we do
because
that
they've
at a
made-
special meeting, then follow a city council meeting where we approve what we
Okay.
just approved
Okay.
before. Okay, got it.
Well, we already have, on the 9th, April 9th, we have a CRA meeting at 5 and then the council meeting. So
That's
when
true.
would we have the special meeting?
It won't be a special meeting, it'll be a regular CRA meeting. It won't be in May, it'll be in April. Wow. No, okay, thank you.
That's good.
Okay, now, Lisa, you have the gateway entrance signage that you want to share with us?
Okay, in front of you, I had given you revised copies of what was actually in your packet. Our lawyer noticed that the task order that was in your packet needed to be more specific to the CRA. Poly Engineering has a contract with the city, and so she gave us a copy of the contract of the city, but we needed to make it more specific to the CRA. So you've got two things that I put in front of you. The new task order, this negates what's in your packet. The only changes really is just made it more specific to the CRA. We still have, and Beth is here if you have any questions, but we still have it to where it is cap on any expenditures is $25,000. Estimated expenditures are $22,040. And of course, we will only pay of what's work is done. So we've got different phases. You've got the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 phases, and then that we will pay as on those phases. So if on phase 1, we decide, they present the designs and y'all decide, no, we're not going through with this, or, we don't like this, then we will only pay for that work. So when you see the cap at 25, that just means that's the most this project will cost us regarding Poly Engineering. That does not include materials and labor for the signs. This is the design work, and they're going to manage this project from conception to completion on this project. They will be doing everything to get this rolling. And that's what this new one is. We need to, I need y'all to vote and decide if we can go ahead and accept this task order with Poly. And as soon as we do get this accepted, they can start with phase 1, which is the engineering and architectural design of our gateway entrance signs. Attached, you also have another thick contract. What they did is, this is the same as a contract that y'all just approved with Poly with the city. She just kind of changed it to where it's also with the CRA. And you will note in here it says 3-year, $35,000. All that is this contract is good with the CRA for any tasks under $35,000. That doesn't mean, this is just if we need them, after we need them for the gateway signs, we already have a contract with them. This is for anything else we want to do. And if we do want to do something else, then they will give us another task order for that specific project. This is just a general contract with Poly Engineering.
Comments, questions?
So then it's $3,000.
Ms. Faircloth, you recognize.
I'm sorry. I get a little ahead of myself.
That's all right.
This $3,000 is basically a retainer
Where are you looking at 3,000, I'm sorry.
to keep them on at our bidding call for 3 years.
Oh, the 3,000 on this, and I'll be honest with you, I just looked at this. Beth, you have, I'm gonna let Beth answer the question. She knows this better than I
Okay,
do.
well,
Yeah.
I'm going
That's
toward the
3,000
question, if we
is
come up with another project within that time, would we not have to bid it out also? No? Okay.
That's what this contract is for, anything under
Yeah, I'm not sure
35,000.
where 3,000 is,
I-
because we
I
don't,
don't know where that
we don't
is.
charge
Yeah.
retainers.
Would you identify yourself, please?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Beth Brandt with Poly Incorporated.
Thank you.
So $35,000 is a limit that's in Florida statute that you can procure professional services for tasks less than that amount.
Did you maybe hear 3,000 when she said 35,000?
No, it said,
No,
look
it
at number
says
5.
3,000.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
What is number, are you talking about on task order or on the?
Consultant,
Oh,
under
yeah.
consultant.
Page
Li-
2 or 3 on the
Page
test.
2, line 5, item
Okay.
5. On the task
Geotechnical
form-
Page
engineer
2,
to be determined.
task order format page, next page over. Item 5, consultant.
Oh,
Right
that's,
here, yeah.
that is, if we need a geotechnical engineer specifically for the signs, that was an estimated cost for just a geotech, is $3,000. That's what that number is. Geotechnical,
Yeah,
we need to do soil
I
investi-
understand, I just,
Soil investigation.
that it costs that much to just design a sign?
This, the whole payment for services 4A, this is for the whole project. That's from designing the sign, to bidding the sign, to administering the contract, to closing everything out. We are estimating it to be about $22,000 with a cap of 25. And included in there is if we need a geotechnical engineer, we're estimating the cost for that would be $3,000, but that is still within the $25,000 cap.
Does this seem outrageous to anybody else? Am I the only-
Well, I would say we paid $10,000 to design a dog park.
And that was
And
just
how
for
many
design,
signs we
not
talking about here?
3 signs.
Three
This is
signs.
everything, this isn't just the design.
And bidding services, managing the contracts from cradle to grave.
What's so special about the signs, or is there something special that it takes an architect or an engineer or somebody to design the signs? I mean,
Yeah,
Why would-
they're structures that have to meet code, and there's gonna be lighting involved, electricity, for some of them that have lights. So, yes, they are specialized structures.
And there are 3 different designs, it's not just one sign, there's 3 different designs. We've got the big monument sign, we've got the tall archway sign, and then the one column sign. So there are actually 3 different designs that they will be doing. It's not just one design. And there are gonna be a lot of other intricate stuff involved.
There,
If I could, maybe just a minute. Mr. Steele, you involve a lot of contracts and design. Does this seem like a reasonable price to you for that whole project?
I'm not familiar with the particular design of the 3 signs, but the cost is in line. It's normal.
Yeah.
That's not outrageous at all. It's well within line of what we've been doing for the past several years. Costs have gone up tremendously, especially for design and architectural engineering type costs. And the reason, they spend a lot of time doing this and then you don't do the project. They still have all of that time invested in design work. So these companies and firms have started they have to find a way to pay for their engineers and their design work, their architects, even if we choose not to go forward with it. Once you get that design done, you have it, and it's like having a set of plans that are shovel ready. But, that is the majority, and really the meat of the work is the design. Like you said, just the little bit we done on the dog park was $10,000.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Steele.
just one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
Why would one sign not be suitable for all 3 locations?
The space, we've got one sign at the main entrance down at Garden. That's the main sign coming into downtown, that's the big one, that's the monument sign. There's no other space available for something that big. Up here at 90 and 85, or at Main Street going to 90, we can't put a monument sign there, and we're doing something different. It's the column with the wrought iron archway to go under. It's archway. And then we've got a column directional sign by the courthouse that's gonna be directing people where the courthouse is and where things are, and that's on 80 and 90 at the red light right there by the courthouse.
Like coming between the courthouse and the
Yeah,
Presbyterian Church.
Yeah. So it's three
Courthouse.
different signs. We wouldn't be able to put a monument sign there because there's not any room. The signs are
You
specific.
got a whole park there.
You can't, the park, we've got room, but over here at, there's just a little space to where we can't put it to where the sign is currently, over here at, the red light, because it's not, that one that's there is a breakaway sign, and DOT would allow that one. The monument sign and any other column sign, those are not breakaway, that's DOT's land, they're not gonna approve those signs. There, we've got to find a different location for them. Excuse me. I just choked 1 minute. Excuse me. So we have to have different designs for that one.
That's, I'm sorry, I said I had one more question. The location then for this new sign will be about where the current sign is there?
Not
By
up
the
here.
Presbyterian Church?
No, we can't, the sign that we can't put there, it has to be a breakaway sign. And that one there is, the one that's there, if there's a wreck,
I understand
The
the
sign
breakaway
has to
sign,
loop.
I understand the
The
reason for
plan is
that.
put right across Courthouse Terrace, like beside the Highway Patrol building, that side of Courthouse Terrace,
and we only
the
have a
west
little bit of
side.
land there that we can put the sign
The,
on. It
the
would-
sheriff's got that whole property there. What's wrong with putting it?
Well, and also another thing, the big monument sign, that's a whole lot more expensive than just a column sign that's directional. So if all the locations had the big monument sign, that's a whole lot more money. So I was trying to do something that was a little different, but also gave directional. The monument sign, the big one, that as y'all saw in the previous things, that's like as soon as you come to downtown, it's the big invitation. It's the big one that says, this is Main Street, this is downtown, this is our historic downtown. That's the big sign. The others are compliments and show the other entrances to Main Street. We can't put, to do a big monument one there would be a whole lot more expensive. So I wanted a directional sign to kind of give people direction of where everything is at that point.
But nothing
Mr.
says,
Hayes was next, actually.
I think Mr. Blocker had his hand up before me,
Okay,
Mr.
maybe
President.
Mr.
But
Blocker.
I'll let Mr. Blocker go.
All right. Then
Well,
Mr.
I'll
Hayes.
tell you what I expected when I got here tonight, and I understood we're gonna have some revisions to this design of these signs. I expected to find a concept with some renderings that we could basically get a outlook. We're talking only 3 signs, period.
Yes, sir.
But right now, we're shooting in the dark. We think from a master plan, we've seen that, but then basically, many of us didn't agree with that. So really now, the concept and the design, that is a great concern to me. I've been involved in this business here 50 years. I want more information than you got here. Where is my renderings of what sign, et cetera, in conjunction with what Mr. Fairclough just reiterated to us?
That's
You're
what-
not giving me enough information.
That's what we're paying them to do, is to.
I
go
understand
to-
that.
But they're not gonna do it for free, and that's why the first phase, let's say they do the first phase, and they give us renderings, and y'all don't like them, we're not gonna pay for other phases. I mean, it's the renderings. I can design a sign, I can give you pictures, but that's not my profession. I'm not an engineer, and I could design something, say, this is what we like, but it won't fit, and it won't work. So that's why we need to hire the engineers, so they can make the designs for y'all to approve at that point. Right now, all we've got is what was in the master plan as an idea.
Do this organization have any type of catalogs, anything? Or you just do it on the spur of the moment?
we work with the ideas that you started with, and that's
Yes.
why phase 1 says meet with you and further
That's
design,
exactly
define what you want and plan it around your thoughts. But no, we don't just have a catalog of designs. It depends on what you want. That's why we start with phase 1, to meet with you and pick your brains and see what you want and what you don't want. That's the first step.
And y'all can give me ideas of what y'all, the ideas that I presented at that first meeting, that packet, those were kind of my ideas. But of course, those are just my ideas, and those were based on what was in the master plan. So if y'all have got other ideas, send them my way, email them to me, and we'll put them all together and we'll look at them.
Let me move along, Mr. Hayes, please.
I have a question. Thank you,
next
Mr.
one.
President. I have a couple of questions. First of all is to our attorney, have you reviewed this?
Yes, sir. This morning, basically what I took was And what we took was the agreement with the city and this consultant and drafted it and changed it as appropriate for the redevelopment agency. So it's very similar to the agreement that the city has with the same consultant.
Okay. That was my first question.
Okay, go ahead.
Second question, since we got a memorandum that we're probably gonna approve with the county, have you addressed the county, since they got all these engineers down there, see if they could task this?
No, sir, I went with the city engineers that the city has. They're the engineers that the city use, so I went with the city engineers.
But we're working with the county now. You were at the meeting, right?
Well, no, we're not, yes, sir, but we're not
Oh.
working with the county. We're
Well,
we're
why
still a
can't we
city
work with the
entity.
county?
We're not
'Cause,
a county entity.
No, I'm not talking about why can't we work with the county for it, so they got a representative on the board now, he's not here, but why can't we work with them?
Well, it's not that we can, it's just that this project was started before that was talked about, and this is just continuing the engineering process, and since they're already contracted with the city, I went with the city's contractors. If you want me to go with the county and get more, that will take more time. We were just wanting to try to move this project along.
We actually
Well,
also,
I'm not trying, I know the project, you know, it's been some while, and people saying, you know, we're moving too slow, but sometimes you can move too fast. And since we do have agreement with the county, and the county has engineers, the county might just do it for free.
we actually were also work for the county. We have a contract with the county that are these exact same billing rates.
But I understand what you're saying, but she hasn't checked with the county to see if they'd be willing to take on this. Have you?
No, I didn't.
I would suggest that you do that. I don't know if we can do it or not. Mr. Steele has said the cost is, you know, is fair. But since we did that, and Mr. Commissioner Boyle is our non-voting member that sits on this, and that was one of the reasons for basically having him, because some of the things that the county could take care of, that if we can utilize them, and they might say, well, they can't do it, and they might say, and then we'll say, okay.
All right, I will say this. I called the other CRAs in the county and asked them, did they have, I had a very hard time finding a construction architect. Now, I've called the other CRAs within the county, and most of the engineers were civil engineers, and I made several phone calls. They're just the only one that I could actually get to do a task order that said they would. Like I said, if you want me to reach out to the county, I can. But I did call several places to try to find, and I even Googled, you know, and I called every engineering company in the area, and the closest was Tallahassee, and we're gonna pay more for somebody to come from Tallahassee to do this for us.
Yeah, thank you. Ron, you were next, and you'll be after that.
I could probably agree with this. How fast can you get the information back up here, and how fast can we have those signs put up? I don't wanna wait another 3 years, so forget it. I don't even wanna wait 3 months.
I understand, and that's, if you look in the task order, our services will begin within 45 days of whenever you execute this task order, if you choose to do so.
Within 45 days.
Within.
That's them, ma'am, I don't know.
Quicker.
Well, that's a maximum of 40. We have an architect, actually, I was talking to him last week, that's gonna work on this, and he's ready to get started, but we've been waiting for y'all to pull the trigger for us to
45 more
start.
days before you even start?
No, I said within 45 days. He probably can start next week. That's just
Let's
contractually no
let's
more
try
than
to-
that.
Let's try to keep this toned down a little bit, Ron.
All right.
Are you done?
Yeah, I just don't want to wait 3 years for them signs to go up out there.
You
If-
made your point.
It-
Councilman Cox.
Thank you. I'm good to go with this task order format as presented.
Dr. LaRose.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is.
I'd ask you to move your mic down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know where it is.
There
Oh,
it
there
is.
it is.
Working.
Thought it went away.
My question is in regards to the price. You said that we'll pay per phase. So how do we know how much is each phase? And how much would that be if at phase one we weren't happy? What will we be charged?
It will be an hourly basis, how long it takes us to get to the point where you decide you're not happy. Yeah, well, no, she says if we're not happy and tells us to go away.
Well, I mean, but, you know, and if y'all say.
Or
at
happy,
that
and then we'll
point,
move
if y'all
on to
say, well,
phase
we don't
two.
like these designs, come up with some more, then of course we're gonna pay more per hourly. That's why it's be very important that we get them a very good, clear understanding before they get started of what designs we want. That will save time, because I don't, you know, they need a clear understanding of what actual signs we want. And that will help on the time.
Because time is money to both of us.
I'd like to wrap this up. So what I'm hearing is we have desire from some of our commissioners to look a little bit further, see if the county can help us in any way. But if not, as quickly as possible, we need to enter in phase one. And I would just reiterate a couple of things, is that the criteria is within 45 days, so it doesn't mean they have to wait 45 days,
Right.
whenever they're available to do that. And secondly, just a note, you mentioned about Commissioner Boyles, he cannot join the commission until both bodies have approved the master plan, and then he'll be joining us there.
May I make-
Okay,
Mr. Whitman, at one point, after listening to the joint meeting, maybe it's a lot to type them, what Mr. Boyle said was that the county has engineers on contract that they could do it with, not that they had engineers who could design the signs.
Right.
So there is exactly the same.
we still can look. Okay. Lisa, do you have?
And they wouldn't, I'm just gonna address his concerns, just like the city engineer. It would be out of the norm for our engineer, for us to approve him to design something for someone else. The liabilities to put on him and the city, he would never do it anyway, but you wouldn't want that. The county has their engineers on staff to review other things for the county, just like we have one on staff to review other engineered documentation
Sure.
that we receive. That's-
All right, let's have one last remark here, because we have to move right along. Go ahead, Mr. Cox.
The CRA and the city of Crestview is quite capable of being responsible for this project. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I am requesting that y'all vote on this so we can move forward with this task order and get these signs
Yeah,
going.
the contract and the task order
Yeah, the
really
contract
together.
and the task order together. The contract is the same one that's with the city. It's just specifically made for the CRA.
At this point, do I have any action by the council? The commissioners?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Davis.
after hearing the comments from Mrs. Steele and our distinguished clerk, I'd like to make a motion that we go forward with this.
Second.
Motion second to go forward with the task order and the contract. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank
get
you,
the green
sir.
light. Go ahead.
I will turn it back over
Thank you for
to.
that. And now if we would go to the next site presentation, if you would introduce, come on up, Mr. Branch. Make sure you introduce yourself.
Chuck Branch. I'm the managing partner of Nextsite. We are a retail consulting firm from Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you for having us. Appreciate the opportunity. With your permission, I'm going to run through a quick PowerPoint presentation. Make
it.
sure everything's working here. I'm going to do a little test. There we go. Good. First, if you will indulge me, I'd like to introduce Juliet Milam, who is with Gulf Power. We have been fortunate enough to partner with Gulf Power to provide our services. They have actually subsidized our costs so that we can make it more affordable to the communities throughout the Panhandle. I've been doing this for about 20 years in providing very detailed market analysis to communities and helping them grow, create jobs, increase their sales tax and property tax revenue. So with your permission, and if you see something that prompts a question, don't hesitate to interrupt me. All right, it was working, just got to bear it. There we go. So I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck's going to be. I'm a big believer that it's sort of like a quarterback throwing a pass to a receiver. If you don't lead him, he's got no chance of catching it. So it's about where do you want to be in the future, not about where you've been in the past. And so as part of that process, we've put together a team of professionals, and I like to start with this so you know who you're dealing with in the event that we have the opportunity to work with your community. We have partnered with Doug Neal, who's with Redmont Consulting and formerly was with Daniel Corporation out of Birmingham, who Elisa is familiar with from her time in Leeds, Alabama. But as part of our Gulf Power Initiative, while our focus at Next Site is going to be primarily on commercial retail development, redevelopment opportunities, we're also smart enough to keep our mouths shut and our ears open. In the event that we understand that there are opportunities in mixed use or senior housing or multifamily, we leverage Doug's contacts across the country to introduce them to those opportunities within the Crestview market. Shelley Shores is our Director of Communications and has also been involved in the real estate industry. Andy Camp is a former economic developer who's also been in the development side of the retail business. My son is one of our business developers, primarily focused in Georgia. Ashton Cushing heads up our marketing department. Oh, sorry, getting too quick here. And then actually the two people I'll point out here are Katie Galloway and Tyler Day. I went out and recruited both of them to our firm because they've got experience in doing site selection work. They are GIS professionals. They understand the market analysis, but they've actually worked for companies who are doing retail development across the country and primarily in the Southeast. So when we come in and start working with a community, and I believe that through some of the conversations we've had in Crestview, I don't know if it's your knees or... All right, this is going to work. There we go. In some of the conversations we've had in Crestview, we believe that the proper approach would be a holistic approach, where we're focused on all of Crestview and the CRA downtown area as one of those sites or trade quarters. But one of the things we want to understand is, where have you been from a retail perspective? Where are you today? Where do you want to be in the future? We want to make sure that we're on the same page with the community. What are the retail opportunities and barriers? And so in a couple of my conversations and phone calls to the mayor, we've sort of gotten the cart in front of the horse, and we've talked to a couple of developers that have interest in the market from a shopping center development standpoint. Well, one of the things that has come up in those conversations is, what are the barriers and the competition presented from Fort Walton Beach and Pace? And so as we get into some of the analysis that we do, we're able to determine the cannibalization of those markets, which are your competitors. What makes your community unique? So we're going to dive down into not just the market analysis of your community and the sites and the opportunities, but what are those other unique characteristics about Crestview? What tools are available to drive development in this day and age? If you're doing large shopping center development or even small multi-tenant projects, what incentives are available? What tools can help drive that new development? Based on the market analysis, what can the market support? My mother used to have a saying, you can't have a champagne taste on a beer budget. Market analysis and demographics are going to drive the types of retailers and developers and tenant reps that are interested in your market. And then what tools are available to support your existing businesses and entrepreneurs? And I believe this is a big component of the CRA and your other areas too, but particularly the CRA in downtown. All of the analysis that we do is a tremendous tool to your existing businesses to better understand the market for their products and services, and in some cases carry additional products and services because we've identified that there's gap or leakage in those areas. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we're going to identify areas of interest within that leakage report and the demographics for people that are interested in opening their own company or business. I didn't think this was going to be the toughest part of my presentation. There we go. So when we come in, we're going to do a very deep dive into the research and market analysis. We're going to understand your market better than anybody that's ever been here or is here currently, from a demographic standpoint, from an opportunity standpoint, from a competitor standpoint. We're going to identify those realistic targets that I spoke about. We're going to become an extension of your economic development efforts. Working with the CRA, working with other organizations with your community, we become your marketing and recruitment team. We're going to attend ICSC conferences on your behalf. I'm going to be on the phone, and the rest of my team will be on the phone talking to developers and tenant reps on a daily basis and reaching out to specific retailers. And at the end of the day, we want to affect positive change within your community. I might have been better off just nodding at you. In fact, we may want to do that. Yeah, you mind? That may make it easier. It's just right and left. So if you can, there we go. So difficult to see on the size of the screen, but this is what we come in starting at 1 o'clock. The key to us is identifying the right regional trade area. Crestview is a bigger market than just Crestview. What are those other smaller communities, rural areas, even in some of the analysis that I've already done, you can see that there are people coming from the southern part of Alabama into Crestview as their primary retail destination. And so we're going to identify the appropriate trade areas through some unique data that we have. We're going to do all of the demographic and consumer segmentation analysis. We're going to identify the focus properties within your market. And then one of the other services, there's a website called opsites.com, which is a national database of properties that is marketed to the ICSC members across the country. We're going to take those focus properties and upload them on your behalf to that database so that those 70,000 ICSC members have access to information about the sites within the Crestview market. And those can be sites in your downtown area or sites throughout the greater Crestview area. We're going to put together marketing materials, we're going to aggressively market the community, and we're going to attend those dozen ICSC conferences on your behalf. And then we're going to pick up the phone and talk to those people about why they need to be looking at Crestview. I'll let you skip this one for time purposes, and we'll dig right into the data. So the critical thing that we do is we have become very good at taking mobile device information. So everybody that has a cell phone, whether we like it or not, that mobile device is being tracked. It's anonymized, so I can't tell you where Elisa was last week shopping or where Juliet was 2 weeks ago, but it does allow us to sort of look at these consumer travel patterns based on the tracking of those mobile devices. And so this is a market in Dublin, Georgia, on I-16 between Macon and Savannah, where the city had been selling themselves as a 30,000 population trade area. 16,000 population in the city, 30,000 in the trade area. When we started doing the analysis, the green one that you just saw was the common daytime location. Where are those mobile devices during the day? This one is where are those mobile devices at night? And this is where were those mobile devices 2 hours before they went to a location and made a purchase. And in this case, it's the Walmart in Dublin, Georgia. Our analysis in identifying these clusters of consumers coming from the outlying areas allowed us to create a trade area that's almost 85,000 people. So when you almost triple the size of the trade corridor, the trade area, now all of a sudden you can imagine the additional conversations and the additional retailers that may have an interest in going to that market. So this is the trade corridor, and again, expanded it almost 3 times bigger than what they had been using in the past. Next. We are one of the only firms that updates our data on a quarterly basis. So our household information and our population information is based on postal codes coming online and going offline. So we have a much more accurate look at the growth in a market, and you're experiencing tremendous growth not only in Crestview but in points north of Crestview, which will impact the population of that trade area. We want to understand the consumer. So there are 65 different segmentation groups. A lot of them represented in this room tonight because it's going to be the millennials, it's going to be the young couples with children, it's going to be couples who've got children getting ready to go off to college, it's going to be retirees, or it's going to be people like myself who suddenly became empty nesters. At each segmentation stage, your spending habits change. I'm more likely to spend money on grandkids in the future than I am on putting 4 kids through college. So understanding those segmentation groups, understanding the leakage. Everybody knows what leakage is, dollars that are leaving Crestview, and at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is how do you keep those dollars here? You have people who are leaving this market and going to Pace and going to Fort Walton Beach because of the certain tenant lineups in those markets. So how do we influence a major sporting goods store or a TJ Maxx lineup to come into this market and do a shopping center development and keep those dollars here? Because if we can keep those dollars here, they're more likely to visit your downtown. They're more likely to keep their other spending dollars in the market. This is one of the critical components, and I think this is a huge help to the CRA in the downtown area, and that is we do a community peer analysis. We're going to identify every city in the southeast that looks like Crestview from a demographic and business standpoint. When we do that, it helps us understand the retail that has shown a propensity to locate there. It allows us to then identify the developers who've done those projects. But from a downtown standpoint, we encourage the CRA in the downtown to go visit some of these peer communities. My partner Doug Neal has a term for it, R&D, rip off and duplicate. Go to these peer communities, figure out what's working, what are you doing that's better than them, what are they doing that's better than you. Identify chef-driven restaurant concepts. Identify boutiques that have shown a propensity to go to those size communities and either help an entrepreneur start their own boutique or convince somebody, particularly in the North Florida area, to open a second or third location in your downtown. We're going to map all of your existing retail, which is a critical component for developers and tenant reps to understand the competition that's in the market, or do they have an opportunity to come in and outposition a competitor. There are several grocery concepts that are aggressively looking at the panhandle of Florida right now. And so we get a lot of requests just to map the grocery store locations so that they can look at that competition map. And then the next one that's critical, and this is where I think you have tremendous leverage in your market, is the traffic counts. You have tremendous traffic counts that I believe a lot of developers and tenant reps do not understand at this point in time. We've got to communicate that message to them. That in addition to the demographics, look at those 45 and 50,000 cars that are coming south to north or north to south in the morning. This becomes part of our marketing piece, which is that existing retail landscape. I mentioned the focus properties. They also become, every time I meet with a developer or a tenant rep or a retailer, I get two questions. What do the demographics look like? Where's the site or sites that I should be considering? So understanding those focus properties, understanding the demographics allows us to have a conversation where we're providing factual information instead of just saying, hey, come to Crestview because we like it. We're going to put together a target list of retailers, and again, this will be driven primarily by the community and that trade area as a whole. But I do believe because of the amount of work that we're going to be doing with other Gulf Power communities, we're going to be able to help you identify some of those boutique and restaurant opportunities that present recruitment opportunities to the CRA in downtown area. And go one more. This is our marketing brochure. We keep it simple. We want them putting it in their briefcase instead of throwing it in the trash before they leave that ICSC conference. Leakage on the left, the focus properties, your economic drivers, which are your largest employers, your trade corridors, the unique characteristics about your market, and then that location map of your existing retail is the backside of that retail marketing brochure. We have recently been to 3 regional ICSC conferences in New Orleans, Charlotte, and Tampa over the last 3 weeks. We had a lot of really good conversations. We've identified additional developers and tenant reps that if we have the opportunity to work with you are going to be interested in your market, all the way from single tenant restaurants to multi-tenant, small 7,000 to 10,000 square foot centers to major shopping center developers. And I'm going to run through a couple of these real quick. The first one is going to be the one that I think really matches up well with Crestview. Hinesville, Georgia, if you're familiar with it, Fort Stewart is based there, 30-some-odd thousand military personnel. The problem in Hinesville when we got engaged is a lot of that military data is not incorporated into the census. And so our ability to work with the military base and be able to at least capture the $1.2 billion in payroll that they were paying out and identifying where those people, the non-military personnel, where they were coming from out of Savannah into and out of that market on a daily basis, allowed us to combine the information and go to developers and ultimately end up with Hutton out of Chattanooga as the developer on that project that ended up with a national sporting goods store, TJ Maxx, Hobby Lobby anchored center, 160,000 square feet. I think you have the same opportunity here in Crestview. The site that's out by the Lowe's, most likely. There are some terrain issues that are going to have to be solved, but that's what we do. We find out what's the uniqueness, and the uniqueness is that that military presence that's coming up through Ferndon to your northern areas where all of the residential development is taking place. Gardendale, Alabama, again, somewhat similar in that the largest piece of developable shopping center property was at the intersection of Interstate 65 north of Birmingham and the main corridor in the community, somewhat similar to I-10 in Ferndon here in Crestview. We're in the process of working with a developer who we've actually mentioned Crestview to, out of Montgomery, Alabama, who's looking to do a 120,000 square foot shopping center with a hotel and 4 out parcel sit-down restaurants. You can go one more. And then this is how you leverage additional opportunities. In this particular case in Gardendale, the city owned property and convinced the major hospital organization in Birmingham to put up a 60,000 square foot emergency care facility, which then led to additional restaurant and multifamily opportunities at that same property. And then Foley, Alabama, if you're familiar with Foley, over on the Gulf Coast. Again, big part of that, somewhat similar to Crestview, is how do you leverage and capture the traffic that's coming through Foley headed to Gulf Shores, and it ultimately led to about 250, 300,000 square feet of new-to-market retail, anchored by the 3 Marshalls as a TJ Maxx concept, but Academy was the largest of those retailers. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Fairclough?
The problem I have, I mean, this all is fantastic, and I appreciate your working so far in this presentation, but problem I see is that we have, well, pretty much right down the center of the CRA, we have vacant properties on either side of the street, and the owners have just refused to renovate or even sell some of them. And if they want to sell, it's way beyond fair market value.
Right.
Consequently, people keep getting on the city council because we won't do anything, but it's not our property.
Understood.
So how are you going to convince them to?
Well, I would hope that part of our effort would be meeting with those property owners and sort of walking them through the idea that an empty building is paying you absolutely nothing, and getting a tenant in that building is going to improve or increase your income stream and also increase the value of that property. We run into that same issue in a lot of communities, and I understand from some conversations we had that you're considering or may have already decided to expand the size and scope of your CRA. So we're also big believers that if you can get the first step done, it starts to create a competitive disadvantage to those property owners that are not willing to do something with their property. The more we can facilitate some development, we create a fear that they're going to miss out, would be our hope. I think the other thing is it's going to require some out-of-the-box thinking where we would get involved with the CRA and try to come up with some unique solutions. One of the things we did in Augusta, Georgia was convince some property owners to give free rent for 6 months, and if the tenant, they had to go in and do the improvements, so the property owner was not out any money, and if they decided to stay in the market at that point, they signed at minimum a 3 to 5 year lease. Now that's just one idea of how we might be able to facilitate additional development in your downtown area.
Right.
I understand this, and we got a certain property, the CRA, folks. And you're not bringing a TJ Maxx or a Marshall or something down Main Street.
Right.
So I just don't see how this is going to help us at all.
Well, from a CRA standpoint, and the reason I'm here today, it was part of the reason I believe was to talk to the CRA about better understanding the size and scope of that market. So when we're talking about doing that mobile mapping analysis for a shopping center development, you can also take your downtown area and do an analysis of the consumers that are coming into and out of your downtown area. And so I think part of it was making a presentation regarding the CRA, also the number of council members that are on the CRA, understanding that Crestview needs to be approached from a holistic standpoint instead of just trying to focus on one specific area. The more you can keep shoppers in your market from a TJ Maxx or a Marshall's or a Sporting Goods or another grocery store or whatever it may be, the more likely it is that they're going to come to your downtown area to visit your restaurants and your boutiques.
You say you have.
And how much is this gonna cost?
I think the proposal that we've made, and I don't know if I'm open, I guess I can, $22,000 a year.
We've been through that. We've been through that.
I understand you've been through a previous consultant. I can tell you that we're better at our job. We've got 5 million square feet of projects on the board, working with Georgia Power, Gulf Power, and Mississippi Power, which are our 3 biggest clients. Without being obtuse, if you buy a car and you don't like the car, you don't quit buying cars.
That price is not the CRA's price,
That's the holistic approach to the
We
entire
haven't-
city.
We haven't really discussed that
Yeah.
yet, so.
So I may be getting the cart in front of the horse.
But it's a good time for me to jump in and say that, because last time, the company we hired, they would focus on the CRA, and by the way, they looked at the city, but we asked them to concentrate on the CRA. The proposal, as I see it, would be, we would only share part of the cost in the CRA because it is a holistic approach. And so then we would ask the city council people to fund part of it, so they're looking at everything, the city and the CRA. So it wouldn't even be $22,000 of CRA. That's, I believe, what I'm hearing anyway. Yes, Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, Mr. President, my thoughts were just the same as yours. I appreciate your presentation, Mr. Branch. Most of us know that we can't grow without expertise. I can't go out and contact 2 people. I doubt if all of us put together could contact 5 and make a presentation for why they should come here. So, not saying that your company, but any company, you know, they would have to have the information. So, and I like to think about the whole city, because the whole city has to be involved in this. I don't care what nobody says. You can't direct it to Main Street over here. It's just not going to work that way, in my opinion, with some of the obstacles that we have that are confronting us. But for the concept of the city, and for the ones that are, you know, that keep up with Crestview, it's growing, and it's going to continue to grow. The general's already told you how many troops you can expect here within the next ever how many years, and South Florida is getting too crowded, people. They're looking at Northwest Florida now that they found out where it is, and they're finding that it's a great place to be at, even though we have a lot of people here that complain about this and complain about that, but it takes time. So from what I've heard, I'm really impressed with it.
Well, thank you very much. We've seen 2 studies in the past 6 months that say there will be 100,000 new people in Northwest Florida over the next 5 to 7 years, which means tremendous residential growth. And I believe that's part of the story to these developers, that they can either get in front of it or their competition is going to get in front of it.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Cox?
Yes, Mr. Branch, thank you for your presentation. I like that. I think for us to move forward, as Mr. Whitten said, Councilman Whitten, part CRA funds and part city, and I'm going to throw out like 40% CRA, but 60% city, but something reasonable like that. But appreciate your presentation, and I like the pricing structure that you presented.
And if I may say, keep in mind that the reason our pricing structure is so aggressive is because of Gulf Power's involvement in our initiative.
Mr. President, if I may, since he said Gulf Power, you know, is I wouldn't say a partner, but their initiative. Well, we have Gulf Power representative here. I know time is getting short, but I'd like to hear from her on what Gulf Power does towards assisting you or whatever they do, because I really don't know what Gulf Power does in this.
Well, first, they're smart enough to bring us into the so. And that was a joke, to some extent.
Hi, Juliet Miller with, Juliet Milam, sorry, with Gulf Power. I'm the local manager here in Crestview. Yes, we brought Nextsite in because they've been widely successful with Georgia Power, and we are working with Nextsite with all of our counties that we serve to identify retail opportunities. Obviously, we are in the business of selling meters, so we also think it's a great idea. It complements what we're doing with economic development and how we work with each of the counties. And we are excited to be presenting.
Thank you, Julie. You had a question, Mr. Malcolm?
Yeah.
Or comment? Go ahead.
Clarify me. In your proposal to work in our area, I would look forward that we may even have a teamwork of the city plus the CRA that your proposal would include, not just the CRA, but the city as a whole. Am I correct?
Correct. Right now, we believe there are 4 corridors in Crestview, south of the interstate, just north between the interstate and downtown, or the CRA, and then the area north of town where Winn-Dixie and Publix are located. So we would have really 4 corridors where our focus would be.
I would agree, and I would entertain that, yes, indeed, that we would move with this fast, Mr. President.
I don't know, Lisa, what we're looking forward to this evening at the presentation, and then what, you'll bring something to us at the next meeting?
I think the next meeting, what I would like to do is bring to y'all, because this, with the CRA, would like to, along with the percentage of what I think we should pay
All right.
based on the land mass.
All right.
And at the next meeting, we'll bring an actual
Okay, good.
presentation.
Yeah, the only thing I would say in just closing, first of all, thank you. I did meet with you privately, so I knew some of the things you were bringing to us, and I appreciate that. And just keep in mind that, like Councilman Hayes said, we're not experts. We're not going to go out and draw people in, and we didn't. I don't know that we did a bad thing the first time, but it just didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out, and so we abandoned that. But that's no reason to just quit. We told our CRA director to go out and find us somebody else, and she did that, so we appreciate you coming this evening.
I appreciate it. From a timing standpoint, ICSC in Vegas is in early May. That's 35,000 attendees. And if I might leave you with this, our goal is not to work with you for 3 years. Our goal is to work with you for the next 10 to 15. So the only way that's going to happen is if we're successful. And I appreciate your time. I hope everybody has a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 6B. Talk fast.
I will talk very fast. I do have a lot to say on this. Sorry about that. Is on 6B, as you notice, as the CRA director, I understand that my responsibility is to be a good steward of every dollar we spend, and so that dollar must be evaluated by the ROI, which is return on investment. It's with this in mind, along with these procedure simplification, that I have reviewed the current financial operation structure of the CRA. Previous change from the city managing the CRA funds to it going to an accounting firm was done because the CRA director needed training and accounting assistance for the newly purchased and much needed QuickBooks accounting program. And that was provided from CRI accounting firm. And it was also to approve access to the CRA account information. Those were the 2 reasons, from what I understand, that it moved from the city to the accounting firm. Since these items are no longer an issue, I would like to request that all financial services be returned to the city's financial department for the following reasons. Current CRA director is proficient with QuickBooks program that records our CRA structure, expenditures and income, so training is not needed. And however, any assistance if needed, the city finance director has offered her expertise if I do need any assistance on the QuickBooks program. City clerk has offered to provide the CRA director full viewing-only access to the CRA bank accounts as needed. Research has shown that the majority of other CRA accounting services are operated through their city's financial department. This was confirmed by the FRA director and current Okaloosa County CRAs, Fort Walton Beach and Destin. Locating the CRA checks and the CRA debit card in the city vault will not only simplify the expenditure process, but will offer the same security procedures offered by the other city departments. The CRA will save $5,000 that's allocated in the budget for accounting services. These funds can be transferred to a program where they can have a better impact on the CRA district. So with this in mind, I would like to request a motion to approve the immediate change in financial operations for the CRA as presented, and the process for any changes to ordinances and et cetera be brought back to the CRA board and the city council for approval as soon as possible. If y'all have any further questions, the city clerk is here to help out.
Questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
and this is toward the clerk. I assume that you've discussed it with her and that it's satisfactory with you.
I don't think I've made any secret about how I feel about the finances being
Yeah,
back in the
I understand that. Now, my next point is just a point of observation. And I appreciate it. What you presented to us, in my opinion, I should have been aware before you got here in front of us. That's just me, myself personally. I would recommend in the future that anything that's gonna be presented, that we get a detailed explanation of it in writing so we can review it.
Okay,
That's all, Mr. President.
sure.
Any other comments, questions? Do I get action by the commissioners, please?
I think
I
Carol-
have one other question.
Go ahead.
Has a legal reviewed this or been informed of this and has
Yes, she has.
Yes.
approved it?
I have considered it, though I'm trying to actually understand it. For example, I don't know if, with respect to the checks, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is the growth management director still signing on the check? Is that changing? I
No,
don't know.
everything will go to the finance department, and the signage is, the finance director will be put on as a signer. It will work as, the same as it has been. The process will be the same. It will just go through the finance department, and the finance director will be the one signing on the checks and then getting them signed. The process is exact same, just through the finance director.
Because we know we have that declaration of assurances that the CRA gave to the city when the change was made some time ago in 2016, I guess. That document talks about the growth management director signing on the checks, the growth management director as a CRA administrator. And so those things would have to be changed in a formal document,
Okay.
and whatever else that entails. That's my concern is,
And if they approve us doing this, then that is the next step to where we would have to do the assurances and the change, and then bring it back to y'all for signing and approval. That's why at the bottom it says, that it's brought back to y'all, the CRA board and the city council, for approval on re-signing the assurances. It's just going back to the previous ordinance, is what it was before it was changed.
well, the previous, and I'm not taking issue, but just for clarification, it was under the city clerk as far as oversight. So are we changing that?
No, the oversight is not changing.
Right,
It's
right.
just the process of the checks and debit card procedure. That's the only thing that's changing, is that the checks and everything get processed through the finance department, and that they are in the vault up here.
So-
That's the only thing I'm
So is
requesting.
growth management director still oversight of the CRA? or
I'm
is
not
that changed?
requesting that change. I'm
Okay,
only
and
requesting the
that's-
finance change.
And that, I ask because then I
Yes.
know how to change the
Yeah,
document
no,
itself.
I'm only requesting the finance change for the reason that I listed here.
So if I hear correctly, Dr. Lowney, we can vote to proceed with the change, but we can't vote to make the change until we change the documents. Is that correct?
Right, because we're operating under this declaration, which
Right.
has those
So
details
we can't change
in it.
procedures until we change that, but we can determine to go ahead
Right,
and
and
start
go
the
forward
process,
with
if that's what we choose to do.
Right, and another thing that, just to keep in mind, that this declaration of assurances was actually put into our amended redevelopment plan via the master plan. So that adds another complication, I'll call it, with respect to the process. We just would need to if we're modifying this, then we need to pick that part of our future actions with respect to the redevelopment plan. We'll need to say we're amending the declaration of assurances, it's referenced on page X and such. to read, like, as.
Well, we can get all the details, but, so I think the onus is on us to determine if we want to enter this process or not.
Right.
And that's what, I'm just asking y'all if it's okay with y'all to move
Nothing
this
will be
process.
finalized by this vote. Do we want to enter the process and start working the procedures or not? Do I have any action by commissioners?
I make a motion
Yes, yes, Ms.
that we do it.
Okay, the motion is to proceed with the process. Any second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm
Okay.
abstaining.
Okay.
I'm abstaining on the record because I'm not exactly sure I know what the growth and or the financial person does. So I would like to review that information first.
This will begin the process where we will get all the details and review it at that time.
Bring orders to us.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
it's not a done deal.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll start working the process.
We'll start working the process.
Just to bring the ordinance before us.
Right. Okay,
You want me to
Fund
move forward on
request?
C? Okay. C is just to fund transfer request of $50,000 from the money market account for the estimated CRA account, operation account for the third quarter expenses of April through June.
Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead.
Motion to approve the requested transfer of funds
motion.
for
Second.
50,000.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Dr. Lowney, do you have anything more for us?
Just briefly, I have February's check from RA Development.
Well, good.
Our collection agency's doing a good job for us, and as you probably know, the legislative bills relating to CRAs died in the Senate, and so, at least for this year, nothing has changed. Expect it to come back next year, but so far, so
Oh,
good.
yeah, it will.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Anybody from the audience like to address your CRA commissioners? If not, thank you all for coming. Meeting's adjourned. Y'all